Diplomats' Archives Hidden Stories. This is the 17th story. Here's a newspaper article. The newspaper is called 독립신문, or The Independent. It was published by the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea. And an article here, dated January 1st, 1921, reports that a proposal to officially recognize Korea's independence was submitted to the Estonian parliament. But how is it that 104 years ago, a country as far from Korea as Estonia became interested in Korea's independence? Our story today starts from this question. On August 29, 1910, Japan forcibly annexed Korea. And from that day forward, Korea endured 35 years of harsh colonial rule under Japanese occupation. But in defiance, countless Koreans risked their lives and fought for the independence of their country. And they did everything they could for Korea's independence. However, among the many efforts made by independence activists, some have received relatively little attention. One such effort is the diplomatic independence movement. Indeed, the proposal for Korea's independence submitted to the Estonian parliament, as mentioned earlier, was in fact part of this diplomatic effort. As we mark the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation in 2025, today we will focus on the many diplomats of the past, those who sought to achieve Korea's independence through diplomacy.
외교라고 하는 문제가 절대적으로 중요하거든요.
외교는 단순한 수단이 아니라 존재 조건이었습니다.
왜 우리가 독립을 해야 되는지 그런 구체적인 이유를 구구절절하게 명시하는 수단이었습니다.
그 비참함 속에서 그분들은 포기하지 않았어요.
So let's uncover the hidden stories tucked away in their archives. As we chose diplomatic independence movement as the theme of this episode, the first person we turned our attention to was this person. His name is Shin Kyu-sik. Shin Kyu-sik, a former military officer of the Korean Empire, was so devastated by the signing of the Ilsa Treaty in 1905 that he attempted to take his own life by poison. Fortunately, his family was able to save him. In 1910, when Korea was forcibly annexed by Japan, he once again attempted to take his own life by poison, but failed. The following year, he went into exile in China, hearing of the 1911 revolution. He believed that the success of the 1911 revolution would soon lead to the liberation of his motherland, so he actively supported it.
신규식 같은 경우는 우선 첫째 망명지가 중국 상하이로 1911년에 갑니다. 그런데 왜 거기를 갔느냐? 중국의 신해혁명을 눈으로 확인하기 위해서. 그러니까 우리는 나라가 망했는데 10년에 중국에서는 1912년 신해혁명으로 새로운 나라를 세웠거든요. 중화민국이라고 하는 그런 걸 보면서 신규식은 독립에 대한 전망을 중국과 상당히 그런 걸 배우면서 신해혁명에 직접 참여했던 그런 경력도 갖고 있고.
Since his days in Korea, Shin Kyu-sik had studied Chinese, and he became highly proficient in the language. Thanks to his fluent Chinese, he built close relationships with Chinese revolutionaries and appealed to them for support in Korea's independence movement.
其实，申圭直先生呢是韩国独立运动和大韩民国临时政府中的一个非常非常重要的人物。在当时的中国人看来呢，申圭直自从亡命中国之后呢，作为一个爱国志士，他一直在为国事在奔走，一直在国事奔走。当时跟申圭直先生交流的这些人呢，非常非常多，包括当时就是叫中国的这种政府高级官员、社会名流，还有呢叫国会议员，都跟申圭直呢有着密切的交流，可以说，后期大韩民国临时政府的这种很多的人脉关系呢，是申圭直先生建立起来的。
친의 혁명을 절대로 지지하니까 순원하고도 연결돼 가지고 편지 교환 또 직접 만나기도 하고 그러면서 중국 인사들 사이에서 한국의 독립 문제를 제기하는 27년간 임시정부가 존재했지만은 신규식만큼 중국 정부하고 가까이 지냈던 사람은 없습니다.
In 1912, Shin Kyu-sik founded Dongjaesa, a Korean independence movement organization aimed at restoring national sovereignty, along with other Korean independence activists. Dongjaesa established branches in other regions with large Korean populations, including Beijing, Tianjin, Manchuria, the Americas, and Japan. This allowed for organic connections between independence movements in various regions. Later, Shin Kyu-sik founded another organization called Shinha Dongjaesa. What's noteworthy here is that Shinha Dongjaesa was an organization built on solidarity between Korea and China.
이제 구체적으로 신한동제사라고 그래가지고 새로운 단체를 만드는데 한중 연대의 기초가 됐던 단체입니다. 그러니까 그 순원으로부터 최대한 자금도 지원받고 뭐 여러 가지 그 인사들이 그 신규식을 통해서 도움을 주는 그런 관계가 유지됐는데.
In this way, Shin Kyu-sik and other independence activists in Shanghai worked hard to arouse the Chinese people's interest in Korean independence through diplomatic methods, such as exchanges with the Chinese. At the time, China was not fully independent either. In that context, the Chinese might have deeply empathized with the Koreans who had lost their own country.
这个时候，从1919年到1932年呢，就对中国来说呢，中国是一个半殖民地半封建的国家。从内部来说，当时北洋政府呢，就是先是北洋政府把持着北京政权，而那个孙中山为首的革命志士呢，在南方呢，成立了就是护法政府。也就是说，这个时候呢，中国还没有完成统一。从外部来说呢，这个时期呢，中国一直受着帝国主义的侵略，中国的主权和领土完整呢，一直呢就是无法保障。在这一过程中呢，联合世界其他的被压迫民族开展共同斗争呢，是当时中国人民反帝反封建斗争的重要手段之一。
In 1918, World War I ended with Germany's surrender. Soon after, the Paris Peace Conference, an international conference designed to establish a new post-war order, was convened.
The conference would decide the terms by which the defeated Central Powers, so Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, Turkey, would make recompense to the victorious allies. And that was the basis of it. Unfortunately, the attitude of the victors, it was a victor's peace, clearly, was such that they were going to make the Central Powers pay in a very big way for the war which had devastated Europe.
However, at the time, many colonized nations and subjugated peoples, including Korea, also looked to the Paris Peace Conference with hope. One of the biggest reasons is, in January 1918, U.S. President Wilson's 14 points included a clause on national self-determination, which later became the fundamental principle of the Paris Peace Conference. But as you just saw, the part about self-determination in the 14 points was vague, and in reality, it mostly applied to countries that had participated in World War I.
Other points were very, very vague and open to differing interpretations, especially point 5, which called for a free and open-minded and absolutely impartial adjustment of all colonial claims. Who did this apply to? Did this apply to colonies that were now occupied by the Axis powers? Did this apply to colonies only held by Europeans? And this would become a big issue in Korea as Koreans attempted to make sure that this self-determination clause was applied to them, hoping that Wilson would support the cause of Korean independence at the Versailles Peace Conference, which of course doesn't happen. We actually don't know exactly what Wilson meant by that and how far he felt that self-determination should be carried out. But the truth is he has to make many compromises at the conference, and taking no action on Korea is one of the compromises that he makes.
Nonetheless, colonized and less powerful nations around the world saw hope for national independence in Wilson's principle of national self-determination. Korean independence activists in Shanghai, including Shin Kyu-sik at the time, were no exception. That's how Kim Kyu-sik was sent as a representative to the Paris Conference. Kim Kyu-sik is also an important figure when talking about the diplomatic independence movement. Born in January 1881 in what is now Busan, he lost both his parents at the age of 11. After many twists and turns, he grew up under the care of American missionary Underwood. Later, with Underwood's support, he went to study in the U.S., graduating from Roanoke College and earning a master's degree in English literature from Princeton University. Kim Kyu-sik went into exile in Shanghai, China in April 1913. There, he formed friendships with Chinese revolutionary leaders and participated in the 1911 revolution. He also served as an English teacher for Korean independence activists residing in China at the time. He later traveled between Mongolia and China, engaging in trade. He leveraged the network of foreign trading companies he worked for to closely interact with independence activists.
김규식은 이제 주로 북베이징 내몽골 쪽에서 이제 활동을 하던 사람입니다만은 이 신규식과 관계가 깊었습니다. 신규식과 김규식이 서로 뜻이 맞아서 한국 독립공화당의 대표가 신규식이고 그것의 그 사무총장격으로 파리 강화회의 대표로 참석을 하게 되는 거죠. 그러려면 파리 강화회의 대표 때 그 예산 같은 게 필요하지 않습니까? 그러니까 김규식 개인으로서도 돈을 구하지만은 신규식 이런 양반들이 또 돈을 구하고.
Kim Kyu-sik arrived in Paris in mid-March 1919. Immediately after his arrival, he established the Korean Public Information Bureau at 38 Rue de Châteaudun and began his activities in Paris. About a month after Kim Kyu-sik arrived in Paris, the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea was established in Shanghai. Afterwards, the Provisional Government changed the name of the Korean Public Information Bureau to the Korean Paris Commission and appointed Kim Kyu-sik as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Provisional Government and Chairman of the Korean Paris Commission. Although it was a provisional government, many things changed in the diplomatic independence movement after the government was established.
그 임시정부가 탄생하기 바로 전에 파리 강화회의에 이미 대표가 파견되잖아요. 그 김규식이라는 분이 독립운동가들의 대표인 신한청년당이라고 하는 조직의 대표로 명함을 가지고 있거든요. 하지만 한 달쯤 뒤에 대한민국 임시정부가 수립되잖아요. 그럴 때 그 이름은, 그의 명함은 어떻게 바뀌느냐 하면 대한민국 임시정부의 외무총장 겸 정권특사로 바뀐단 말이죠. 그러니까 정부의 탄생이라는 것은 그에게 외교 활동에 있어서 굉장히 중요하게 정부를 대표하는 그 장관이요, 특사라는 의미로 확 바뀌잖아요.
Kim Kyu-sik and the Korean Paris Commission made various diplomatic efforts to attend the Paris Peace Conference. However, with Japan attending the conference as a victorious nation, it was impossible for Korea to attend the conference from the first place. However, according to experts, attending the Paris Peace Conference was not the original goal of Kim Kyu-sik and the Paris Commission.
전혀 참석을 못할 겁니다. 그런 걸 알고 갔던 게 당시 파리 강화회의 대표입니다. 그래서 김규식 선생의 그 동양보고나 할 때 보면은 제일 주안점을 뒀던 게 유럽에서 한국 독립의 문제를 국제적으로 선전하는 활동.
우리가 왜 독립을 요구하는 것에 대한 설명을 해나가는 거죠. 선전 활동을 하는 것이고, 임시정부의 공식적인 입장들을 알리는 공보 활동들을 해나가는 것이고, 또 한편으로는 지금과 똑같은 것인데 그런 어떤 대사 업무도 하고 영사 업무도 해야 되잖아요. 그러니까 유럽에 가 있는 한국 사람들의 신원을 보증하거나 이런 활동들을 해나가게 되거든요. 그러면서 파리가 공식적인 외교적인 중심지로 역할을 하게 됩니다.
At the time, Paris was the center of global diplomatic activity. Many less powerful nations sent delegations to Paris, hoping that their independence issues would be brought up at the Paris Peace Conference. So it was a highly appropriate venue for promoting the issue of Korean independence to the world through diplomatic means.
1919년도 당시 파리는 세계의 수도라고 불릴 정도로 국제사회가 치열하게 외교를 펼치던 현장이었습니다. 이때 당시 그냥 김규식 선생과 한국 대표단에 있어서도 파리는 조선 독립을 국제사회에 호소할 수 있는 어쩌면 단 한 번밖에 없는 그런 기회의 장이었습니다. 그래서 특히 또 유럽 언론과 외교관들이 밀집해 있었고, 당시 식민지 문제와 민족 자결 원칙이 논의되는 자리였기 때문에 조선의 독립 요구를 외교적으로 공론화하기에는 상당히 최적의 공간이었다라고 할 수 있겠습니다. 하지만 동시에 식민지를 가진 열강들의 이해관계가 첨예하게 대립됐기 때문에 외교적인 성과를 얻기는 상당히 어려웠던 그런 환경이었다고 할 수 있겠습니다.
Kim Kyu-sik and the Korean Paris Commission members carried out various activities to inform people of the reality of Korea under colonial rule and to appeal for Korea's independence. They focused on informing people about the situation in Korea by distributing various public information pamphlets and contributing to various media outlets. The people who were at the center include Hwang Ki-hwan and Seo Young-hae. Hwang Ki-hwan was born in Suncheon, Pyeongan-namdo Province in 1886 and traveled to the US in 1904. He later served in the US Army during World War I. After the war, Hwang, who had remained in Germany, moved to Paris at Kim Kyu-sik's suggestion and began working at the Korean Paris Commission. Hwang Ki-hwan published various publications and sent them to European media outlets, delegations from various countries at the Paris Peace Conference, and prominent French figures aiming to raise awareness of Korea's current situation in the international community. In particular, Free Korea was a monthly magazine that contained a variety of rich content that went beyond fragmentary knowledge about Korea.
임시정부와 독립운동 진영의 입장들을 대표하는 차원에서 통신정 같은 것들이 발행이 되는데 분량이 적고 공식적인 아주 단편적인 내용들을 알리는 차원의 문제였단 말이죠. 그래서 더 넓은 풍부한 내용을 가지고 설명을 하되 외교적인 역할만 하는 것이 아니라 일반 대중들, 사실상 지식인이나 나중에 한국의 외교나 혹은 어떤 민간 차원에서 역할을 할 수 있는 사람들을 대상으로 하는 선전물이 필요하다. 대상도 다르고 내용의 범위도 다른 그런 자유한국을 발행하게 되는 것이죠. 실제로 그렇게 자유한국이 발행됨으로써 한국의 독립만을 설명하는 것이 아니라 한국의 독립이 왜 필요한 것인가에 대해서 영일관계, 그리고 한국과 일본 간의 상황, 그리고 한국이 어떤 상황 속에 놓여 있는가, 3.1운동 이후에 이런 상황들을 보다 더 풍부하게 설명할 수 있는 내용들이 이 자유한국에 수록되게 됩니다.
Hwang Ki-hwan also closely observed the world situation at the time, meticulously capturing changes and working to create public opinion favorable to Korea.
자유한국이 발행되고 그럴 때 굉장히 흥미로운 지점이 뭐냐면 파리 위원부 쪽에서 현실 상황들을 보니까 영국하고 일본이 그렇게 가깝지만은 않다는 걸 포착하는 거죠. 그러니까 영국, 일본이 경제적인 상황을 두고는 중국 지역을 특히 두고서 미묘한 긴장관계, 미래적 경쟁관계에 있다라고 하는 판단을 하게 됩니다. 그래서 이제 조지 엘 쇼 체포 사건도 굉장히 큰 충격을 주게 되는데 이게 어떻게 보면은 단순히 한국의 독립운동을 지원했기 때문에 쇼를 체포하는 것이 아니라 중국 지역에서 무역 문제, 관세 문제를 두고 일본과 영국이 경쟁 관계에 있을 수 있다라고 하는 보여주는 사건으로 포착을 하거든요. 그래서 그거를 굉장히 크게 어필을 합니다. 자유한국에 영국과 일본이 사실은 긴장 관계일 수도 있다라고 하는 것을 기사화하게 되고 그렇게 공식적으로 보여주기도 하지만 비공식적으로 또 알려주겠죠. 영국 사람들에게. 실제로 그래서 이 영국 한국 친후회의 인사들은 일본에 대해서 굉장히 적대적이라고 표현할 수 있을 정도로 우리가 이런 나라를 지지한다는 것은 우리에게 모욕적인 일이다. 비양심적인 일이다 라고 하는 문구까지 나와요. 20년, 21년에 영국과 일본 관계가 미묘한 긴장 갈등 관계에 있었다고 하는 것을 그걸 잘 활용한 측면도 있는 것이죠.
Seo Young-hae was another diplomat of the provisional government. Born in Busan in 1902, he participated in the March 1st movement at the age of 17. He later traveled to Shanghai and then to France to study. In 1929, after completing his studies, he founded the Goryeo News Agency in Paris. As a correspondent, he informed the provisional government of the realities of Europe and took the lead in informing Europe of the reality of the Korean independence movement. In the same year, he wrote the autobiographical novel The Life of a Korean. The Life of a Korean is a novel written in French. Seo Young-hae wrote it to introduce Korea, a country in Eastern Asia that the French would have found quite unfamiliar. The book received an enthusiastic response. It was even dedicated to the then president of France.
5번이나 이렇게 재발행되고 또 그리고 당시에 그 언론계에서 상당히 그 높은 평가를 받고 여러 가지 그 잡지나 이런 곳에 실렸는데 이분에 대한 어떤 서평이라든가 이런 부분들이
Through the novel, he strongly criticized Japan and appealed for attention to Korea, which had lost its sovereignty.
단순히 그 소설뿐만 아니라 이게 언론에 기고했던 이게 한국 동양 전문가로서의 그 기고했던 그런 글들을 보면 상당한 수준이 높았던 것으로 프랑스 저널리스트들이 평가를 해주고 있습니다. 이분이 단순히 프랑스뿐만 아니라 스페인이라든가 또 쿠바라든가 전 세계 여러 언론인들 그리고 작가들과의 교류를 통해서 이분이 상당히 한국에 대한 이야기를 많이 선전하고 알렸던 그런 부분들은 굉장히 높게 평가받을 만한 일이라고 생각합니다.
임시정부의 외교라고 하는 것은 사실상 일반적인 정식 정부의 외교가 아니기 때문에 일반적인 수준 이상의 필요성을 공감대를 만들어내야만 하잖아요. 한국 사람들은 왜 이렇게 어려운 길을 택하는가? 왜 지속적으로 독립을 요구하는가? 이들이 갖고 있는 일본에 대한 감정은 무엇인가? 이런 것들을 동감하게끔 만들어지는데 글이라고 하는 것이 칼이나 총보다 유효한 무기가 될 수 있다. 동감을 이끌어내는 무기가 될 수 있다. 라고 하는데 가장 유효한 역할을 한 분이 서영해고 서영의 글이었다라고 할 수 있는 것이고
We can say that Seo Young-hae was a true diplomat who personally practiced public diplomacy in the faraway land of France over 100 years ago. In June 1919, another Korean independence activist left Shanghai and arrived in Paris. His name was Cho So-wang. Born in Paju in April 1887, Cho So-wang later studied in Japan. Following Korea's forced annexation by Japan in 1910, he wrote and distributed a statement condemning the act. Then, he was subsequently arrested and detained by Japanese police. After graduating from college, he returned to Korea and worked as a teacher, later going into exile in Shanghai. In Shanghai, he worked tirelessly for Korean independence and actively participated in the establishment of the provisional government. And in April 1919, Cho So-wang was elected a member of the Provisional Government State Council. Soon after, he was appointed diplomatic correspondent and dispatched to various parts of the world to engage in diplomatic activities. On June 30th, 1919, Cho So-wang arrived in Paris, France. But by the time he got there, the Paris Peace Conference had already effectively ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28th. But he didn't stop there. He turned his attention to places beyond Paris. The first place he noticed was Lucerne, Switzerland, where he heard news of an international socialist conference being held. And Zhou So-wang submitted a request for recognition of Korean independence at the Lucerne Conference. And this motion was passed at the conference.
파리 강화회가 그 약소민족들의 기대와는 저버리고 그냥 무의미하게 끝났지 않습니까? 근데 그때 1919년이라는 한 해는 사회주의 진영에서는 굉장히 아주 분란이 심하고 아주 다양한 움직임들이 나타났던 그때였습니다. 예를 들면 우리가 잘 알고 있는 코민테른, 러시아를 중심한 코민테른이 19년 3월에 만들어지는데 사회주의 혁명의 그 두 갈래 걸음이 있었습니다. 하나는 코민테른을 통한 공산혁명, 그리고 민주사회주의로 나가는 루체른의 국제사회주의 대회. 이 둘은 서로 대립을 하거든요. 근데 그 사회주의들이 주장했던 건 반전을 주장합니다. 그다음에 약소민족의 독립, 이런 것들을 얘기하면서 연대를 하려고 하는데, 어쨌든 루체른의 국제사회주의자 대회에서 한국 독립 문제가 상정이 됐고, 거기서 가결을 통해 가지고 그거는 어쨌든 우리나라 독립운동사에서 의미 있는 성과라고 봐야죠.
In Zhou So-wang's actions, we can get a glimpse of the mindset of Korean independence activists of the time. They never gave up, even in difficult situations. They did whatever they could to hasten Korea's independence. Afterwards, Zhou So-wang left England and traveled through Denmark, Danzig, Lithuania, and Latvia, arriving in Estonia in August 1919. And there, he met Mihkel Matna, an Estonian socialist thinker, journalist, and politician. In Estonia, Zhou So-wang gave Matna an English brochure titled Republic of Korea. The brochure, Republic of Korea, was translated into Estonian and later published in 2 Estonian newspapers.
에스토니아를 들러서 이제 우리 문제를 이야기하고, 그러니까 거기에 노동당 대표가 그 의회에 대한민국 임시정부에 대한 승인안을 상정을 했는데, 그 결과가 그 1921년 1월 1일 날 독립신문에 상정됐다는 이야기는 있지만 그게 과연 그 결말이 보도된 적은 없어요.
However, given that the full text of Republic of Korea appeared in an Estonian newspaper, we can conclude that there were people in Estonia at the time who viewed Korea as a sovereign state, not a Japanese colony. According to one article, Matna has already reported on the activities of the Korean representatives in Paris and the issues between Korea and Japan in an Estonian newspaper. (1919) was the year after Estonia declared independence from Russia. As Estonia had a similar history to Korea, he might have felt a sense of sympathy for Zhou So-wang. And now, let's read again the article published in 독립신문, or The Independence, on January 1st, 1921, which we showed you at the very beginning of the program. It's a simple article made up of one sentence. But diplomats who fought for independence overcame the realistic difficulties and desperate situations that stood in their way to come this far.
이 시절에 한국을 아는 나라가 도대체 얼마나 있겠어요? 특히나 유럽에서는 아시아, 동아시아를 일본 중심으로 바라보고 있단 말이에요. 그 일본에게 식민지가 되어 있는 한국에 대하여 알거나 귀 기울이는 사람이 거의 없어요. 그럴 때 우리 문제를 적극적으로 알린다라고 하는 자체는 거의 망망대해나 또는 엄청나게 큰 사막에서 그 속에서 헤매면서 그러나 끊기지 않고 일하는 거하고 똑같단 말이죠. 그 노력이 정말 대단한 거고요.
When you think about how they got here, every word of the article will weigh heavily on your heart. And their story isn't over yet.